Welcome to the Delight Your Marriage podcast. You're joining me, Belah Rose, as I dive deep into the beauty, power, and truths about intimacy. Learn not only the practicals, but the heart behind what making love is all about. Delight your marriage. Hi there. So excited that you're joining me. If you grew up in a way that taught you that sex is wrong before marriage, and then sex is good in marriage, then it's a little bit like a half truth. The thing is, the wrong type of sex is wrong, but sex in marriage is the right type of sex. So that's right. However, when it's not, the nuances aren't clarified because as parents, maybe your parents didn't know how to clarify it, or maybe they didn't know to clarify it, or they didn't want to talk up sex and then you would do it before being married. They or church or whoever, anyone, may have made it seem like sex was wrong in entirety. And so this purity culture for men or women has really brought a lot of shame and a lack of freedom even after somebody is married. So how do you uproot that? How do you change that? How does that become, something that a wife doesn't feel ashamed of enjoying intimacy, and she doesn't feel like it's dirty or wrong to have pleasure and to pursue it and for fierceness and all these things? It's interesting because the Bible is clear about the boundaries of sex. DelightYourMarriage.com/boundaries. You can download a free PDF that goes through the specific verses. There are boundaries, but I want to invite you to consider that we don't need to add to the Bible, right? That's actually what the Pharisees were doing. The Pharisees not only were taking the laws that God gave, but they added laws for no reason. So if you're a wife listening, I just want to give you a curious heart. Are you adding to the Bible's limitations around sex? Have you decided that only this position is acceptable? All these other aspects of intimacy that your spouse is craving, they're carnal and bad. The truth of the matter is God designed your bodies, and your husband's desire is not bad. It's not bad. Now, we all have sinned sexually. All of us. We all have. And it's hard to wait till marriage. It is hard. And if you did, bravo, because that's biblical. That's right. But I want to invite you to consider, what if the messages that were taught you before you got married was, hang on, resist the temptation, because God made intimacy and it's really good and it's going to be awesome in your marriage. But it's just not the right time now. It's just not the right time. Hey, why don't we help you distract yourself with this activity or this hobby or doing this, or here's a way to handle, let's talk about the temptation, but let's talk about solutions. Because sex is really good. It's wonderful. And God designed your craving for it. And God designed your desire for it. It's just not the time yet. And I'll tell you what, you're going to be so thankful that you waited. And you waited for God's best. You will be so thankful. It's going to be awesome. And what if the husband was taught that? And what if the wife was taught that? And then they get married and it's going to be awkward for a while. They'll have to figure it out, and they'll get a groove of, I'm figuring this out with the person I love, the person I'm safe with. And also, what if the wife had resources ahead of time where she had some insights around her husband and his body and how things work And what if the husband has some resources around his wife and her body and what she needs emotionally to feel connected, even through intimacy? And what if they both had some resources ahead of time? Great. Or at the very least, they had expectations to have a heck of a lot of grace with each other for a while before sex is going to be as great as they anticipated. It does take time, and it might be uncomfortable for a while and all these things. So we want to have anticipation. We want to be positive about it. And we want to have excitement about it. And we want to recommend it to our kids and why it needs to wait. It's just not the timing for it. And when they get close enough to get started with where intimacy becomes relevant, there's conversation around practicals and there's guidance around that. And we have open conversations around that and resources, godly resources for that. So maybe the question is, well, where do we get those resources? Well, I wasn't intending to make this a plug, but let me plug it. The pre-dating workbook is on Amazon, and the pre-engagement workbook as well, or the pre-engaged workbook is there as well. And then the book Delight Your Husband is a great one for women moving from a place of purity culture mindset, where sex is bad, bad, bad. And then all of a sudden you're married and it's like, what? It must be bad, except maybe to get pregnant. I guess that's all, because we're still supposed to be fruitful, right? And no, we get to delight each other. We get to have pleasure with each other. We get to consistently prioritize unifying. And that's heart, soul, mind, spirit. It all happens through intimacy, physical intimacy. And it's God's design. He designed your husband's sex drive. So those are just books, but then what we took was the actual program, which is our flagship program, and there's a lot of dynamics to it. We don't dive into sex right away. Surprisingly, maybe. We don't, because there's a lot of reasons women go away from sex. It doesn't start out with just do this. No, it's all about the heart. It's all about processing the mind and what blocks you as a woman. So it is a process. And if a husband is listening and is like, oh, I just wish, well, I can tell you her husband was proactive. And he said, I want to change. I want to be the man and husband I need to be to facilitate a wonderful marriage. And because she saw the fruits, she decided to go towards it. But it was because he started, he led, and he changed. That's what she says. It's great. Anyway, let me invite you to listen just to her story. And then you can be inspired, whether you're the husband or the wife, to learn more and how to invite your wife to transformation. But also as a husband, how are you transformed? And how do you help others become more comfortable and anticipating intimacy and pointing them to Christian resources to help them? Let's get started. Can you introduce yourself and just share a little bit about you?
Yes. So my name is Lindsay. I grew up in the church. And in high school, I ended up being a part of purity culture. And I'm not quite sure if that was something that I found myself and decided to take on, or just being with my friends and having similar beliefs and mindsets and traditions, or if it was my parents. I'm really not sure. But either way, that's how I went about my dating time frame from high school, college. I went on dates in college, but I didn't have like a steady boyfriend, long-term boyfriend, or anything like that until my husband and I, well, my now husband, studied abroad in London, England, when the Olympics were there. And we actually met on a flight to London. So we didn't know each other before then.
That is so cute. That's crazy cute, Lindsay. Oh my gosh. Are you serious? Did you sit next to each other?
So he was in the row across from me, but he was wearing a hat from our same college. And I was thinking, he's cute, but I've never seen him before.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes. So we became friends at that point because he's a great guy. Anyways, he's absolutely wonderful and very easy to talk to. So we just became friends and then ended up dating. And then obviously boyfriend to fiance to husband, here we are. But anyways, so we remained pure during our dating engagement all the way up until our wedding day. And I even, it's a funny story if you look back at it, but I even told him when we had been dating for like 2 or 3, I mean, it was the first week, probably 2 days in. And I told him, I said, okay, so here's the deal. So I am pure and I will remain pure until I'm married. So if you don't agree, you can get out now. And I'm glad he didn't take the out, but I knew I needed to give it to him and we agreed and we stood firm. But anyways,
Amazing.
I was very upfront with that.
Cool. Yeah.
And, but then, we've now been married for 8 years. And so once we got married, I was in school for my doctorate of physical therapy. And so we got married, I graduated, started my career. We had 2 kids. And then, it's like life just rolls into one into the other. And so it's very difficult to think that if you are saving yourself for marriage and maybe not to the extent that sexual things are bad, but you just almost don't know what to think of them. You just know that you can't do them.
Right.
Then in a way, in that immaturity, you think they're bad.
Right.
Whether it was straight up said that way to you through the church or not, you feel like they're bad. And so when we got married, it became a thing of, okay, well, now we can, and this is wonderful. And we know this is sacred and something we can enjoy and a gift from God. But what does that mean? So for me, I'm a rule follower. And so I want to know exactly what does that mean? So like, where do we define this? What is God's intent and meaning of intimacy within marriage? What's okay and what's not? And so in attempts to figure all of that out, listening to mentors and podcasts and books and just trying to find things. Of course, that can also be stressful, right? Because then you find materials that maybe contradict each other, right? Like conflicting things. And you're like, well, it didn't say that in the Bible, but I mean, I'm not a scholar, so maybe I misunderstood.
Right.
And so I was really on that path I want to be free and playful, and I want to share that with my husband, but what does that look like? And so before this program and before my husband did the husband's men's program, MR, he had gifted me one of your ebooks, and
I'm so ready for this.
He meant so much good. Belah, he meant so much good out of this, but he gifted me your ebook, and I didn't know what to think of it, a little overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure if I asked for this or if I didn't, but I don't know what to do with it. And so I opened the book or the ebook and I read the first 2 pages and I said, okay, that was a good start. And I put it away for now. And yeah. So then my husband started doing your men's program for husbands. And he told me that he was doing a program, a Christian men's program. And he gave me, just a very vague understanding, because we are very like open and honest and don't want to have any sort of like, oh, I was hiding this from you, and he knows that about me and I know that about him. So that's just the way we operate. And so he had explained that to me. And I said, okay, you don't have to tell me everything, but thank you for telling me that you're doing something, just so I know. It doesn't seem secretive,
Yeah.
A surprise is one thing. We don't like secrets.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he started doing that. And obviously I was taking note, and I was like, wow, I mean, my husband was great before, but who is this? Right? Really, really wonderful man. And absolutely wonderful. And as he continued, not only did I see him be a great husband and a great father, but just a really, really great man of God. And that is so, I mean, that is so attractive. Just call it what it is. It is so attractive. And I mean, not that he wasn't before, but man, he's such a leader and just so, I don't know, just a wonderful man of God. And so then once his program was finished, he did let me know that there was an opportunity for a clarity call for me to see if it was something I was interested in. And he, of course, gave me the caveat of, I'm not making you do this. I'm not telling you you need to do this. I love you if you don't do anything at all, you know. And so I didn't feel pressured. None of that happened. But I did do a clarity call. And I remember talking to Dana, and I was like, so I don't really know what this is. I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but I know I'm super interested because I've seen what it's done to my husband. And so then, you know, just kind of taking that and her asking me, you know, like, well, why do you want to do this? And, you know, like, you know, what kind of change has this made in your husband? And what do you want to see in your marriage? And, you know, bringing our children into that, you know, like just what we want to leave for our children. And we've always had a good, maybe even great marriage. But even every time my husband and I have a really good conversation about like where we are, or, you know, just, you know, those more in-depth conversations when you don't have a 2-year-old, you know, barking in your ear kind of thing. We talk about how our benchmark for a great marriage and even an extraordinary marriage just continues to move and move forward. And where we've always felt like we had a great marriage and an extraordinary marriage, like it just continues to like, oh my goodness, that benchmark just is way over a mile long now, you know? So it just continues to grow, even if we think we have a great marriage. There's just always something that comes out that we didn't expect that is just more growth.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow, Lindsay, this is so cool. Okay, so this clarity call made you think about what you wanted your kids to witness and what kind of home you wanted them to grow up in. Is that where some of your thoughts went?
Absolutely. It helped me put like words to what I was feeling.
Wow.
And that's always a good practice. I could do
Mm.
that every day. Oh man. But just hearing the questions just be so like, you have to answer it, right? And so you have to come up with words like, oh, all right. Yeah, I need to digest that and understand that and be able to say that. And even just that practice was really helpful and helped me realize like, yes, this is what I want our children to see. And this is what I want our home to be like. And this is what I want their home to be like when they are looking for their spouse and building their home ultimately.
Mm. Oh, that's so special. It's so special to realize a lot of times I think and I'll curious if you agree, I think we women wouldn't necessarily do a program for our own happiness. A lot of times it's not like,
Mhm.
but if we recognize the happiness of our children could be impacted by us working on something and actually gaining more joy through the process, it's like, oh my gosh, well, okay, I'll do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like a sacrificial love kind of thing. Like I'm doing this not only for me, but the impact that I have, you know,
Yes.
on the people around me, my friends, my family, my kids.
Yes. Yes. Wow. So was it when your husband invited you with no pressure? That means I'm super
Mhm.
proud of him. Good work.
So
um,
proud.
and that he would be happy if you didn't. Like and you could tell that was genuine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And whether he had been practicing that over the whole program or not, I won't even take that from him because he, I know it was true. It wasn't just lip service. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm saying this, but I really hope you do. He
Right.
was genuine. And I mean, and I could just tell, and of course with someone that you're married to, like, you can tell, if it's lip service, that. And so it really doesn't do anyone any favors to just pretend, the people closest to you know you.
Yes. Yes. And was that, because that's, you probably have seen there's a lot of women who have come to the program because their husbands went first, but women are smart. And just like you said, they're married to this man. So they know, did he really change, or was this just another kind of tactic that, how did you decide that, no, this guy has changed? This is an actual different man because of this work. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. So I think the first thought is, obviously there's a financial obligation. So if you don't want real change, go get something free. Sure. Right. Like, if you put money into it, you're going to put some effort. And so that was the first, but I think kind of coinciding with that was the fact that it's a not long, I don't mean to overemphasize, but like, it's a time commitment. Okay. So it's not just take this 1 hour course and watch your life change. It's, doing homework, getting on calls, doing modules, and doing that consistently for weeks. So maybe the first week it's like, oh, back to school time. We're all about math and reading and English, and then what happens at midterms? Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I mean, yes, of course, we had weeks where maybe we were busier or more tired or life, right? But he really never wavered in at least his effort. I will say that. And of course, everyone has, speed bumps and things like that. But even the speed bumps weren't that bad. I mean, even if you get into those times where you're like, we're really stressed out and life is just a lot right now. But I mean, if that's the worst you ever do, we're set. And so, I mean, to see that over the whole course of the program, not only was he committed, but like, our life was changing. Those hard times weren't nasty, and they weren't spiteful, and like, you could see literally like the love and the safety and the cherish. I don't know the right word for that, but like cherishing.
Sure.
Like, literally like in disagreement and in stress. And it was, I don't know, you could just see that it was a heart posture. It wasn't just, I'm doing this.
Yes. I want to tear up. I'm so happy about that. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So good. Wow. Okay. So you got on this clarity call. Were you a little nervous getting on it with Dana? How did you feel?
I was. So I was already nervous, but I actually was looking at the time zones, and I got it wrong. And so I thought I missed my call. And, just candid here, I boohooed. I cried. Oh. And I think that's actually what brought me in, because I was like, wait, I'm not even in this program, but I thought I missed a chance. Oh. And I did. I boohooed. And then an hour later, I get a reminder that it's like time for my call. And I was like, oh, great, I'm ready. Back to business. So there was already some buy-in before.
That's really amazing. It's like those moments you're like, okay, God, I guess you prepared my heart. I wouldn't have wanted it to happen that way, but.
Yeah, exactly. He gave me a little extra preparation.
Oh.
Yeah.
So was Dana scary?
Oh, no, she was not scary. She was so professional, though, that it meant something. It wasn't intimidating, but it wasn't casual. Which I think that's a perfect kind of right there in the middle. Because if it's too professional, then it's not relatable, and but then too casual, it's like, I could probably, just have this conversation over a cup of coffee, with, I don't know, somebody from church, maybe, but no, she was easy to talk to, but she was professional in the way that she carried things, and it It was very, I don't know. It just felt like, I don't know. I was going to get some results maybe. Like you feel like, okay, there's something here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. I love her.
She's
Oh,
wonderful.
she is wonderful. She's wonderful. Okay. So you came into the program. What was first impressions, thoughts? How did it go?
Yeah. In the program itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the program, the modules, I was glad that they were enough to get a good bite of something to work on for the week, but they didn't take me all day long. Because the first time I sat down like to do some work, I had planned like I think like a 4-hour chunk, like just to make sure I had time to do what I need. And I was like, oh, great. I don't feel overwhelmed anymore. Like this was much more manageable. But I had my mindset and like my objectives for the week. So like it was something I could like remember and like jot down and come back to, you know? And then getting into my first accountability group, I actually had my group the next day. The next day. So getting in there and getting to actually meet some faces in my facilitator and in the ladies in the call, just getting to actually like hear their stories and hear where they come from, which was really neat because they were all different. And initially, if you take that, you can be like, oh, there's nobody in here like me. Like, what am I going to learn that applies? And then, man, you just start to realize that, okay, well, so-and-so is in my life phase, but so-and-so is ahead of me, which is really great because I don't have any older sisters. And I really honestly don't have a lot of like girl friends. I might have a couple. But really my husband is my best friend, to be honest. So it was nice to get like some girlfriends too in a group that having a step or two ahead of me that you can speak to vulnerably like this, you know, whether it's about being a mother, being a wife, just being a woman, you know, it was really comforting to have that group. And to just, I don't know, see the diversity that just really helps all the different factors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. So what did you find valuable throughout the work, would you say?
Oh, of course, there's some things that hit home more than others, and they kind of like hit you in the gut, and you're like, oh man, don't think I could forget that one if I wanted to, you know? So there are things like that that either you don't think could be you until you assess yourself and you're like, oh, that's me. That's totally me. Or that you've never heard before. So like going back to like, you know, looking for clarity in like, what are like the boundaries of a Christian marriage and intimacy related? Like, what is that? Right. And so taking those takeaways that are literally in a way brand new information, you know? So that was super valuable and finding freedom in that. But also not just being tossed to the wolves and being like, okay, so you're free. Here's your playground and there's your fence. Just go find something to do. Right. But to find ideas, like in the community, like sharing different ideas. And like, I was even able to look through the ideas and like, different like initiation and like intimacy ideas and then playful ideas and things like that. And I came up with my own that ended up being my husband's Christmas gift, which was so much more meaningful than just going and getting him a collared shirt to wear to church or something like that. Right. So we still talk about that. And I don't think he talks about my Christmas gifts from the years before when he got like khakis and tennis shoes and things like that. So I think it was quite a good gift.
I think so. Sounds like it. Good work.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Were there moments like that, like sense that you have just felt a different freedom in intimacy? What would you say?
Oh, absolutely. I think our communication around intimacy has changed. Um, and I mean, that can look so many different ways, but just our communication in general, respectful to each other, really. But like me being respectful to him when we discuss things like that, with how, I don't know, even the way that we like, I don't want to say assess, but like in the way that we assess maybe even like encounters and intimacy and things like that. I think the admiration that we have for each other just like lights this fire on the physical intimacy that it's just like, it almost doesn't make sense sometimes, right? It's like, that shouldn't happen that way, but I love you so much and I admire you so much that it's like pouring kerosene on this whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That is awesome. Oh my goodness. So with all of the purity culture that you started with and grew up with and were super self-disciplined and disciplined, and it's a blessing, right? I mean, well,
Absolutely.
let me ask you, would you recommend somebody save sex till marriage?
Ooh, that's hard. Um, yes. Yes. So short answer, yes. But here's the thing. As a mother of children, of course, you start thinking of this of, okay, well, what do I want to do with my children? The same thing or something different? So that's one avenue where the wheels start turning. But then also, professionally, I actually do have discussions like this in the clinic. And I do still recommend it. I mean, if that's my place in the conversation, I
Yeah.
do still recommend it. But where I think it's important is having conversations before. Like I do still think that, and I mean, I'm not talking about like we've been dating for 2 days, so let's like really get to talking about this. But I mean, I'm talking about like engagement and like what does this look like for us when we get married? You know, like what is your understanding and what is my understanding? And I think just starting even with that communication, like we're not necessarily talking about physically exploring things, but I mean, just being like more openly communicative there. Like, I think that's one thing that I would change if I could go back. I would still save physical intimacy in that capacity. Yes, I'd save it for marriage. But I think our emotional intimacy and our communication around intimacy would have evolved faster.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm on the same page. I always encourage waiting for that actual physical act. That's in my view, extremely a biblical notion that needs to be saved for marriage. However, knowing that sex is good and
Yeah.
worthy of honor and appreciation and excitement and anticipation, and both parties being on board with that and recognizing and appreciating that this is going to be a good thing, and the wife learning about it ahead of time so that she is prepared and excited and has really good learnings under her belt, so it's not this like, okay, we can't, and then silence. It's like,
Right.
no, we can,
Right.
and how and what. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, Lindsay. So, okay, so now kind of post purity culture, post uh hard and good marriage, even great marriage, and now to levels of just extraordinary. What maybe what insights would you give somebody who maybe started off in your shoes? You gave me some, but I don't know if there's anything else that you would just encourage.
Yeah. I mean, for starters, I would just really drive home that you're not alone.
Mm.
And there are other people that have been in your shoes. And obviously, if you're looking at a couple that has children, like the last thing you're thinking is, oh, they haven't been intimate, right? Like we all know how science works. So I think it's really easy for you to feel alone if either you have, siblings that are married and have families, or you have friends and cousins, or like if you feel like, everyone else is doing this and I'm not, and I'm confused and I'm behind and things like that, like you're not. But you also don't have to run around with like a poster board or a billboard over your head saying, I'm waiting till I'm married. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's also very, very sacred in a way that, like, yes, I'm proud of it, but I also think like that's a conversation with me and my husband, and I don't know. It's just sacred. I don't
It's
know.
sacred. It's beautiful. Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So so if a wife is listening and maybe had similar background, similar thoughts, similar concerns, all the stuff, would you recommend the program? What would you maybe say to ease maybe some of the fear or anxieties, whatever your thoughts are?
Oh, absolutely. I would. I absolutely would. And I think as far as fears and anxiety, I think as women, and particularly moms and just busy women in general, I think the biggest fear is always like time commitment. And oh my goodness, am I going to be able to handle this? And I can say that the coursework itself has been manageable, either with sitting down and actually like having pen to paper and being able to study, or if it's not a season of that life, it's, I can also pull it up when I'm driving and then, digest and write notes when I'm, going to bed. And so time management has been able to show me like, okay, this is doable. It's not really a stressor. It's actually like, it complements life, because it helps add to it. And the same way with like the calls, with the monthly calls, or with the program with the weekly calls and the accountability calls, like even if I'm packing kids' lunches and I'm doing laundry and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to call in 5 minutes. I don't know if I can do this. I get on it. And then I definitely don't regret doing it when I got off. Like I never say, wow, I really wasted that hour. I mean, I have never thought that. And so it is really refreshing. It's like, doing a workout. You never really regret, doing that 30-minute workout that made you feel so good the rest of the day. Same thing with, maybe not really feeling like having intimacy tonight, and you do, and you really don't regret that. So same thing with these calls and everything. I've never once regretted putting in the work, because it either does something for me personally with my life, with my walk with God, with my day, or obviously into my marriage and into my family. So I've never once regretted it.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so good. Wonderful. Well, any final thoughts that you want to give somebody who may be listening?
Oh, my biggest thing is, for starters, just knowing that you're not alone, to look for a community where you are accepted and encouraged and empowered. I think it really does so much for your life and for everyone in your life, especially if your goal is to impact your marriage and your family, and even your friends, because they can tell a difference too. They can see it. Even if we think we're good at masks, they can tell if you're doing well or if you're not doing well. And so they can see into your marriage, even if you think that they can't. And just putting in that work, you don't regret it. And it's something that you'll carry through, honestly, in so many different facets. It's not just marriage. It's not just family. It's who you are as a woman, as a Christian, in whatever you do. If you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, I don't know what you do, but like the way you do things, it carries in every aspect.
Mm, that's amazing. Well, I love knowing your husband in the men's program, and he's one of the leaders over there, and he's stellar. He is just
He's
stellar, and
wonderful.
he loves you like crazy, and it is just so special. It really, really is, and it's been fun to get to know you and your perspectives and your history, your story, all of it. It's just really been special. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for what you've done in our family and our marriage. And you've really made a difference for us.
Oh, wonderful. Well, praise God. Thank you. Would you be willing to pray for somebody who might be listening?
Sure. Sure. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you with open hearts and just vulnerable spirits. Lord, just please speak to anyone listening to this, male or female, that just needs to hear your voice. Please help anything that has been said to latch on to any corner of their heart that has not been touched or just needs reinforcement or affirmation there. Lord, please just help them to hear your voice through this and to help them know that they're not alone and that there is a community that is here to encourage them and to help them and to just help them to find you and everything. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen. Thanks, Lindsay. This was wonderful. Really.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm going to stop this. Thank you so much, Lindsay. It is such a joy to have walked alongside your husband and you, and just, I'm celebrating, absolutely celebrating. So, dear listener, if you are excited about the possibility of transformation in your marriage and in yourself, that's what this is about. For the good of your own kids. That's what Lindsay mentioned. That was really her biggest motivation. I would love for you to be a part of at least learning more. So that's a clarity call, and that's what Lindsay did with Dana. And you can do that at delightyourmarriage.com/cc. So whether you're a husband or a wife, and oh, it's so cool. It's so cool to see what God does in here. So we would love to have you, and that's a free gift from us, and we'd love to give that to you. All right, my dear listener, thank you for joining me. God bless you, and we'll talk soon.